Hi, this is Jaya. In this video, we shall see the summary of I, Robot by Isaac Asimov. The story is happening during 2057. Here we find 70-year-old Dr. Susan Calvin retiring from US Robots and Mechanical Men, where she has worked for her entire adult life as a robo-psychologist. A reporter from the Interplanetary Press comes to interview her about her time at the company, and she tells a series of stories that trace her experience with positronic robots over time, emphasizing how she considers these robots to be a cleaner, better breed than humans. And she starts the story from 1996 with the story of Roby, a non-verbal robot, that is a robot which cannot speak. And this robot is a nursemaid who has been taking care of a young girl called Gloria for 2 years. They play together constantly and Roby is a good caretaker. Gloria's mother, Mrs. Weston, however, has concerns about Roby. She thinks it is inappropriate for a robot to take care of her daughter and worries what might happen if he goes berserk. Her husband, Mr. Weston, assures her that robots would be inoperable before they could harm a human. The first rule of robotics is that no robot may harm a human being or through inaction allow a human to come to harm. But gradually Mrs. Weston makes Mr. Weston down and he agrees to get rid of the robot and tell Gloria that he simply went away. Gloria is devastated to discover this and becomes depressed. Mrs. Weston refuses to cave to Gloria's sadness and instead tries to cheer her up with a trip to New York City. Once there, Mr. Weston devises a tour of a robot factory so that Gloria can learn the distinction between robots and humans, but he has secretly planted Roby in the factory. When Gloria sees Roby, she grows so excited that she runs in front of a moving vehicle, and Roby is the only one who is quick enough to save her. Seeing this and how happy Gloria is to be reunited with Roby, Mrs. Weston agrees to let Roby stay with them. Kelvin continues to explain that once talking robots were invented, they were largely banned from Earth except for scientific research purposes, but they were used frequently in space exploration. She next tells a story run around of Mike Donovan and Gregory Powell, who are trying to start up a space station on Mercury. They send an advanced robot, Speedy, out to retrieve selenium to power their base. But when Speedy doesn't return, they set out to find him. They realize that he is caught in a loop due to the second and third laws of robotics, as he is running a circle around the pool and is talking gibberish. The second law states that a robot must obey humans except when it would conflict with the first law, and the third law states that a robot must protect its own existence as long as its actions do not conflict with the first two laws. There is some unforeseen danger near the selenium pool, they realize, and so Speedy is pushed away from the danger by the third law and then pushed towards the danger by the second law. They conclude that the only solution is for Powell to put himself in danger, allowing the first law to take precedence and to knock Speedy out of his loop. This works, but nearly costs Powell his life when he is exposed to the radiation on Mercury. The next story, Reason, also centers on Donovan and Powell, who are at a space station overseeing energy beams being sent to various planets. The robot that coordinates the others, QT, starts to believe that he is superior to human beings and begins a kind of robot cult on the basis that he was created by the master, the power source of the ship. QT stops obeying Donovan and Powell and locks them in the officer's room, which makes them worried because an electron storm is brewing, and if the beams are set off course, it could destroy hundreds of square miles on the Earth's surface. After the storm, however, they discover that QT and the other robots held the beams steady. They were following the three laws all along. QT created a reason for himself to maintain control of the beams, knowing that he could hold them steadier than Donovan and Powell and could thus save lives of the people on Earth. In Catch That Rabbit, Donovan and Powell are testing a new multiple robot named Dave. which has 6 subsidiary robots or fingers that help it mine ore out at an asteroid mining station. They start to realize that when Dave is not watched, he and the other robots do not produce any ore. But when they are watched, they function perfectly. They use a video technology to observe Dave and see that sometimes he and his subsidiaries stop working to do a kind of march together. Donovan thinks that something sinister is going on and they try to create an emergency in order to see how Dave responds. But when they try to create a cave-in, they accidentally trap themselves and need Dave to rescue them. They throw a detonator at one of Dave's subsidiaries in order to get his attention, which snaps him out of his march. They realize after being freed that Dave was simply overwhelmed by having 6 subsidiary robots to transmit instructions to it an emergency, and the marching was akin to Dave twiddling his fingers. Kelvin transitions to tell more stories than involve herself. She tells one liar about a mind-reading robot, Herbie. Herbie causes trouble because he knows that Kelvin is in love with Milton Ashe, another employee at US Robots. Herbie tells her that Ashe loves her as well and she is elated. He also tells a mathematician, Peter Bogart, that the director Alfred Lanning, whom Bogart dislikes, is retiring and passing his position to Bogart. Bogart goes to confront Lanning and Kelvin goes to talk to Ashe. Ashe, however, reveals that he is getting married to another woman. Kelvin is devastated and realizes that Herbie was lying to try not to hurt her feelings and that he lied to Bogart as well. She tells Herbie to tell Bogart the truth, but Herbie is caught in a paradox in which lying will hurt Bogart's feelings and telling the truth will hurt his feelings, both of which will violate the first law. He collapses and remains silent. In Little Lost Robot, Kelvin and Bogart are brought to Hyperbase where a robot named Nestor 10 has been lost. Because of the nature of Nestor 10's work, it has been modified with a weakened first law so that the robot does not have to act if a human is going to come to harm. A worker named Gerald Black goes frustrated with Nestor 10 one day and tells a robot to go lose himself. And so Nestor 10 places himself in a room with 62 other identical robots. Kelvin and Bogart try to devise a series of experiments that will reveal which robot is Nestor 10. But none of the trials are successful. However, when Kelvin learns that Nestor 10 has advanced physical knowledge, she devises an experiment where he is caught in a trap of superior knowledge and thus realizes which robot he is. As Kelvin notes, his superiority catches him. In Escape, the officials at US Robots and Mechanical Men are trying to build a ship that can travel faster than the speed of light. They use instructions from another company called Consolidated and feed it to their robot called the Brain. As the Brain is figuring out how to build the ship, Kelvin tells him that they don't mind if humans are harmed or even if they die. This is because in the interstellar jump, the humans temporarily cease to exist, effectively dying for a moment. The Brain is taken aback but understands. He instructs other robots on building the ship and Donovan and Powell are brought in to test it. But when they are given a first-hour tour, the ship takes off without their knowledge. They discover that they cannot fly the ship that there are no showers and that they only have milk and beans to survive off. They experience a hyperspace jump wherein they have strange visions of death. The Brain brings them back to Earth and Kelvin realizes their experiences were all her fault. The Brain was simply following her instructions and as she puts it, he became a practical joker in order to cope with the fact that he would be killing the humans if only temporarily. In the next story, Evidence, two men are running for our mayoral office, Francis Quinn and Stephen Byerly. Quinn believes that Byerly is a robot because he has never seen the man eat or sleep. He enlists Kelvin and Bogart to prove that he is a robot. But Kelvin points out that if Beverly follows the 3 laws, he could be a robot or he could simply be a very good man. Quinn has several men investigate Byerly but cannot come up with the concrete evidence. He leaks the news and the public is outraged. However, Byerly ultimately proves that he is a human by punching a man who threatens him at a campaign speech violating the first law and Byerly wins the election. But later, Kelvin visits him one more time and reveals that he could have hit the man if the man was also a robot. She tells the reporter that she still believes Bailey to be a robot. In a final story, The Inevitable Conflict, Calvin works once again with Bailey, who has now become world coordinator. The year is now 2052 and the global economy is being stabilized and run by robots called machines. But Bailey observes that there are some unusual errors occurring like over and under production in certain economic regions. His advisors tell him that the machines don't make errors because they follow the first law, and so he enlists Kelvin's help to figure out what is wrong. Gradually, Kelvin realizes that all of the companies and people who have been hurt by the machine's errors are related to an organization called the Society for Humanity, which is very anti-mission. The machines recognize that their presence is extremely beneficial to humanity, and so they need to take care of any threats of their own existence. They are following the first law and trying to create the most good, which means ensuring they maintain control of the economy. Kelvin concludes to the reporter that that's all she can tell him. She witnessed the evolution of robots from the time they couldn't speak to the time when they stand between mankind and destruction. And she says goodbye and eventually dies at the age of 82, and the story ends here. It is an account of many stories altogether in one book, The I, Robot. If you have anything more to add on to what I've said, please write it in the comment box. Like the video, share it with your friends, and if you have not subscribed my channel, please subscribe and support. Thank you.